Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode. We really appreciate you joining us. This podcast really shows us how we can all learn, live, and thrive off of each other. By sharing our knowledge through our conversations, we will impart some knowledge whilst learning ourselves how to progress even further. Here is your host.
Scott, we are in the Personal Development Hub, and this is Power Up Tuesday, and I'm so excited today because this is rather special. My guest today literally lives, about 40 minutes from me, might be a little bit less. Do you reckon it's an hour? Well, there you go. And her name is Paulette Steele. Now, she is a true entrepreneur, is our Paulette. She has turned a hand to many things, recruitment. She even taught people how to fly, recreational flying instructor. I think that was what it's called. Now she is majorly involved with personal development. Paulette, welcome and thanks for giving up your time today. It's a real treat to have you here.
A pleasure, Mary. It's really lovely to be talking with you and everybody else to be listening in.
Yeah, it's awesome, isn't it? So let's start somewhere. What about personal development? When were you first aware of it? What got you involved? Give us a bit of an idea.
Actually, I think that with personal development, it's probably been around for a lot of my life, but I didn't actually recognize it as such. And so, I remember about 20 odd years ago, I started reading a couple of different books, different things like that. I remember one of the books I really enjoyed was The Art of Possibility, can't remember what it's called. I do have a copy of it, but I didn't actually realise that's what I was doing. And even before that, I think about one of the companies I worked for, they put us through this training and dealing with people or recognising yourself and all that. And that was really probably personal development training, but it wasn't called that then. So it's really only been the last couple of years that I've really acknowledged that what I'm doing is personal development. Even when I was in recruitment, when I was helping people, get jobs and all that through interview training and so forth, I never actually realised what I was doing. I was just doing.
Isn't that interesting? What did you call yourself? A job matchmaker? Is that what it was?
Job matchmaker. We used to think of that because when I first started recruiting, I was in Sydney. The girl I worked with, and we both came from retail background as well. But she said, we feel like we're a dating agency here, because you read people's resumes, and sometimes they talk about, some people would talk about their marital status, the year they were born, how many children. It's like we feel like we're a dating company. And you do match yourself up because you match the person with the company and the job. So because they all talk about the right cultural fit, and it is important that the person hiring is going to fit with that company's cultural manner. And so it is like matchmaking them.
Yeah, that's lovely. And when I think about that, there is so much personal development in what you were doing, and you were damn good at it, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. Yeah. When I wasn't calling myself that, I was a slave trader, because that's another reason. Sometimes people say, "What do you do?" I said, "I just sell people like slaves."
These days, that's a bit provocative, but I think understanding the human spirit and how people operate is all part of personal development. I guess now, retrospectively, you can say that sort of thing. Yeah. And you were in retail. Now, there's another human development, personal development, growth experience, sometimes at a vertical level, would you say?
Yes, that was, especially when I first started in retail, I was on the floor, which I hated. After 3.5 years on the sales floor, I got out of the floor and into an office, and buying office. But when I was on the floor, it was interesting times, really, because and different companies, I worked with Myer and David Jones, both of those, and where the locations I worked in as well. It was interesting, the different types of people you come across. And I always worked most of the time I worked in fashion, young fashion, and you get these husbands coming in or boyfriends coming in, and they'd say to you, "Oh, I want to buy something for my girlfriend, my wife." We'd say, "What size is she?" Oh, I don't know, a bit like you, but maybe the big and you about fail, you would know that whatever they bought would come back. It was always the wrong stuff.
That's fantastic. I hadn't even thought of that, but how brave. They were brave souls. I can't imagine there was many of them around.
No, it wasn't too many. Not too many did that, yeah. But a few of them have a go at it, yeah. Wasn't that they chosen the wrong thing? They just, usually the size was out, so.
Yeah. That's funny. Absolutely. And what do you remember when you think, on looking back now, reflecting on your life, was there one thing that you noticed about your life where there was real, I call them growth spurts, when things were a bit challenging and your mindset was important in overcoming it?
Well, I think one thing for me, the stand-up part of my life, when I had to I didn't think of it at the time, but when I look back in retrospect, definitely it was my mindset was, fortunately it was a very positive mindset, was when I had a major accident, actually. I was riding my bicycle and I hit everyone thought when I heard I'd had a bicycle accident, I just assumed there was a car involved. I actually hit a jogger.
Ooh.
Yeah, I hit a jogger. It was two of them. I only hit one. But I hit her dead on. She just wasn't where she was supposed to be. I was on a cycle path around the Yarra River in Melbourne, and I hit her hard. It was like hitting a tree, really. So the bike went down, and it was pre-helmet days, just pre-helmet days. And so my head hit the bitumen.
Oh, dear me.
I got up again. And I went home. Actually, I didn't ride my bike. This fellow another cyclist I didn't know came along, and he walked with me because I was about 1 kilometre from home. And then my flatmate, and she doesn't know to this day why she came out, but she came out and her bike saw me with a stranger and walking, which didn't make sense. So she took me home. And the last thing I remember was saying, I feel a bit sick, a bit nauseous. I'm just going to lie down. And thank God she didn't leave me just to lie down. Because apparently apparently I was throwing up suddenly. And I had a lump in my head. No blood or anything like that. And then she called the neighbours in. They called in the lady who lived in the house behind, who was a nursing sister. She took one look at me and she said, "You've got to call an ambulance and get her to St Vincent's," because she knew straight away that I had a hematoma, or I had a fractured skull,
wow.
Which is no big deal. Fractured skull is nothing. It's like fracturing an arm. But the hematoma on my head was pressing on my brain. So it was Saturday night at the hospital, and my flatmate thinking, "Oh, she's just got concussion." And I was rushed into the emergency theatre and operated on. And they removed the hematoma, which was apparently the size of a golf ball. And apparently I only found out much later on that I'd actually died on the operating table. Because the surgeon, when I went back to see him, he was so gobsmacked, astonished to see me walking and looking good as I did, that he blurted out, "I can't believe it, because you died on the operating table." That's the first time I'd heard it mentioned, so no one had told me. And then, I went into a coma for 2 weeks, and I came out of the coma, unable to walk, unable to talk much. I mean, my right side, it wasn't walk. My right side, my left side was fine. My right side, I couldn't move my leg or my arm. They didn't know what to do. So those brain cells had been killed off. And when I talked, apparently I wasn't speaking very clearly. And I was, and so, everyone was surprised to see me out of the coma, because I thought I could have been in a coma for God knows how long. And they weren't expecting me to come out of it. And when I did, they were expecting me to be basically a vegetable. But I was fine. And then apparently I quickly nurses started hearing that I was going home. And they said to my visitors, they said, "Will you stop telling her she's going home? There's no way known she's going home anytime soon." And they said, "Oh, we're not telling her. She's telling us she's going home." So that's how I was determined. From the time I woke up, I was determined I was going to get out of there. So I spent 5 weeks in the neurological ward, then 4 weeks down in rehab, and then I was out. And I was out and off and running, really. Well, I wasn't running, I was walking very slowly, but I was walking again. So, yeah.
And what changed for you in terms of this was my life before and this is my life
Well, I
afterwards? What do you
realised
remember?
nothing greatly changed. I realised though that I have such a positive mindset. Like when I think back, I never gave up. I mean, I was going to get out of there by hook or by crook. I was going to get out and I was going to get better. I mean, the next day after I got out of hospital, I got on a plane and flew to Brisbane because I was in Melbourne.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't tell anyone. I just got on the plane and flew to Brisbane, and my dad was there to meet me. And it was the old airport at Eagle Farm, and where you had to walk down the stairs of the plane. You know, there was no automatic sort of thing that came out to meet the plane. And I struggled to get down. I had to walk. I didn't tell any of the air crew. But I had to take a step at a time, like an old lady. And I got into the airport, and Dad was like, he was amazed because the last time he'd seen me, I'd still been bedridden, wasn't walking, and he expected me to be in a wheelchair or something like that. So he was just absolutely astonished at, I was just walking. Yeah. Although a bit
So
slow.
Mindset.
It's all about mindset.
Yes. Well, see, you were running rings around personal development back then, weren't you? Really? When you think about it.
Yeah, I was. And I got back to work. I was a bit longer off work, but I was back at work about 3 months. Yeah.
Did you ever ride round the path again? Or
I did. I made
the
sure I
tan,
did.
isn't it called? The tan?
Well, it wasn't the tan. It joined up to the tan, but it wasn't part of the tan. But, I
Okay.
did. I made sure I thought if I'm going to get back on that bike, I've got to go past that point where I hit the jogger. And
Yes.
so I did about 6 months after the accident. I went back on that path again. Yeah.
And what happened to the jogger? Can't help it. I've got to ask that question.
I know. I know. Don't know. People ask that. I've got no idea. I was so furious at the time.
I bet you were.
Furious with it. I have no idea. I presume she was standing. So
Oh,
there
wow.
was two. I don't know. I was just so mad. I was just
Have
so
you?
cross.
I can imagine that. Have you heard of the movie The Miracle Man?
Yeah.
Great movie. And Paulette, that is fantastic. And like I said, this is your view out the window. And
Magic, isn't it?
what do you take from that? It is magic. What do you take from that background every day when you look out there?
I just love it. It's just so relaxing. When I used to fly out of Caloundra, I used to fly over this area quite a lot because often it'd be really dry and brown down sort of on the mud flats, as we like to call them now. But up here in the Blackhawk Range, it's always like this. It was always so green and lush. And I just love greenery and lush. And there's obviously Lake Baroon in the centre of it there. It's just so beautiful. And it's just such a peaceful existence. You can tell actually this photo was taken in October because you can see hints of purple, which was the jacarandas as well.
Oh, yes, they're wonderful.
And jacaranda is one of my favourite. That's my favourite tree, my favourite colour. Yeah.
And if I was living overseas, what would you tell me a bit more about the jacaranda? Because I know about it, but lots of people on this call.
Well, jacaranda is originally from South America. I think it's from Argentina it comes from. It was introduced here. It's the most beautiful tree. It's a very shady tree, and most of the time it's got green leaves, very delicate green leaves. But in October or November in New South Wales, when it comes out, it's just a massive lavender colour. And then when it drops all its petals all onto the ground, it becomes this like lavender lilac coloured floor.
It does.
They're beautiful.
Well said. You
Yeah.
said more than I'd say about it. That's fantastic. Thank you.
I was
It's
actually born
certainly-
at Jacaranda Private Hospital in Sydney.
Oh,
And I didn't know this at the time, but every parent or set of parents, they were given a jacaranda sapling to plant for every child that was born.
oh, wow.
Mm.
Oh, that's interesting. That's,
Mm.
Gee, the things I learn on these interviews is just amazing. So what do you enjoy about applying personal development values to your life? What is it, something that stands out that you enjoy about it? Why do it?
It's just, it makes you, well, I've always been an optimistic person, always see the glass half full. And I think when you follow personal development, it really educates you to be much more aware of that. And also gratitude. That's the biggest thing I've learned in the last couple of years is to be, and I guess I always have, but never been really aware or alert to it. And so, yeah, now, I try to think of, I've started it recently. Every night before I go to sleep, I'll write down what I'm grateful for that day. Sometimes it could be little things. Like yesterday, I was not feeling on top of the world. I just had this bit of a bug. I was really tired. And when you get tired, you feel out of thoughts with yourself. But so last night when I went to bed, I'm thinking I'm not going to be able to write much. Before I knew it, I was down to the bottom of the page.
All about gratitude,
All
isn't
that
it?
gratitude. Yeah. Yeah. So even when you're not feeling the best, it's amazing what you can be grateful for.
And I find with gratitude, it's the little things, isn't it?
Yeah, tiny little things sometimes.
Yes, and it's not about the dollars on that occasion.
No,
It's about the feel good factor, isn't it?
It's about someone, you go somewhere and someone decides, okay, I'll come with you. So you get that appreciation that they've come with you, so you get to enjoy it more because you got then someone to talk about it with and that kind of thing. So that's what happened on Sunday. And yeah, just the generosity of people, just generosity of where you are, what you're doing. Just everything, you cooked, you've enjoyed a lovely meal. You found a great recipe, you've tried that, it's worked. It's all these things to be grateful for. Friends just calling you out of the blue. It doesn't have to be about, it's not about money or possessions. It can just be experiences and those friends sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. So you've really been involved in the personal development industry for, it's got to be more than, is it only 2 years? I thought it was longer.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's your biggest learnings over that period of time?
There's the fact that there's an amazing amount of people who are into personal development themselves, and people that really, people who need it. There's so many people out there who are really looking for something like this, but they actually don't know that's what they're in search of. And then, they find it, and it's just takes them a whole new path in life. It's just that such a positive energy that can be generated through personal development.
Yeah, that's true. It's like turning the light on in a dark area, isn't it? And seeing things for the first time, going, oh my gosh.
And it's like when you're feeling really positive as well, you seem to, you're like a magnet, but like that, when is it two positives? Is it two positives or two negatives that repel each other? I can't remember.
I think it's two negatives, isn't it?
Negatives repel, yeah. And so it's like you're like this magnet, and you're repelling people. You repel that negativity. And it's just people don't even want to talk to you because they want to moan about something, and they just know that you're not going to moan back to them. You're not on their wavelength.
No, that's right.
When people start off on things like that with me, I kind of just a shield must go down on my face or something, and I just drift off. And so like their talking's kind of in the background, and then they just give up in the end. So
that's a good way of thinking of it. Now, I'm a great believer in cheer squads and circle of influence. Have you been someone to surround yourself with positive influences or small groups over your years of being on I shouldn't say that, sounds terrible, your years of being on the planet, your experience of being on the planet is probably a better way to put it.
I've always been quite of a loner. I've always thought of as a sort of solitary kind of person. So for me, when I think about, there have been times, like a lot of my bosses, I was just so fortunate to have them, that they happened to be my boss. Then there was other people who could have been my bosses, and they happened to be my boss or manager. So they've become like my really great mentors, and they've been really positive people. And that's just happened, and that's been fantastic. And when I think back, if I look back at the other years, there's been times when, I've worked with people, and you just support each other. You're all that support for each other, which is always great. And I think as I've gotten on in life, I've realised, you can't do everything alone. You've got to have a network out there of people. It doesn't have to be a multitude of people. It can just be a small group of people. But it's nice to have those others out there that you can talk with, and you support for each other. Sometimes they'll support you, you support them other times. I think that's and don't think anyone can be on their own totally.
I agree with that. Yes. I think it's okay to be alone. There's lots of advantages in it. And I think you can afford to be discerning as to who you spend your time with. Would that be true for you?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't tolerate fools. I mean, I don't have no time for stupid people. So
yeah, that's good. That comes across you very straightforward and I think, well, for me, that's refreshing. I like that. Let's go back a little bit to flying.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
I think there's
Passion.
got to be lots of personal development, that self-belief, confidence. Thinking back now, applying what you know to that time, just give us some ideas of how that was for you, because it's one thing to be flying. It's another thing to be teaching people how to fly, which is what you were doing, right?
Yeah, I used to love that part of it. I mean, one thing I got to get in the plane as well. I always enjoyed any excuse to get up in the aircraft was always fine. And because I was training fairly early on, obviously I was always landing the plane, which was the favourite part. That's where the judgment comes in, you know, your height, your speed, your angle of descent and all that. And I love it and landing to a certain point. But it's, it was always interesting. Every student's always different. You got some we always did a training session in a training room first. And you get some of them were just, they couldn't wait. They just couldn't wait to get out in the plane. They just didn't want to do the training part, the theory part. They just want to get out there and fly. And others, it was like you had to coerce them out of the training room to get into the plane.
And was that about mindset?
Technical aspects. They were just so technical.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were just so technical. Oh, what happens about this? And, you know, what about this? What about this lift and the thrust and all the forces, what are the forces acting on the plane and everything else? They're really into the technical side of it and the theory side rather than just getting out there. And I said, well, it's best when you actually experience it. You know, that's when you'll understand about it. But then you get other people who just get so gung-ho, they just want to get out there and fly, and they probably don't take as much in as they should. There was one guy who's a mate of mine, actually. I used to work with him at a time, and he decided to learn to fly. And so he was progressing along okay. He was always one who wanted to get out in the plane and all that. And the previous lesson we'd had was on stalls, power on stalls, power off stalls. And you do them at a safe height. You do them at 1,500 feet. Yeah, so you're never going to crash into the ground. So, but he really liked the stalls because when you start the stall, the plane just goes nose down and you pick up speed really fast. And he really liked that just that energy that came through, that adrenaline rush. And so he was saying that the next lesson, I really like those stalls. That was real fun. Yeah, okay. And this lesson was to do with emergency failure on takeoff. So in this case, you're under 500 feet. And we went through it all in the training room. I ran through it. We were going to do, and we did a couple of just normal takeoffs and landings. We did the circuit run as you do and that kind of stuff. And then I knew what was coming up. And then we took off about the third time. And I pulled back on the throttle. So it just pulled it back to idle, which straight away the nose goes down. And he went to panic mode.
Oh.
And I did it as safe. We were at 400 feet above the ground. But you put the nose down at 400 feet and he sees the ground and just, his mind just went empty. And so then I took over. I said, okay, taking over. And then I just powered on and off we went. And so we did that. And the next time he was a bit more prepared, I said, you've got to have it in your mind, prepared already for where you're going to land. You've got to take action. And there's no time to second guess. You've got to your first thought is where you go. And he got it after that. But that first time he was so scared. Yeah.
So is it about self-belief? Or
it is about self-belief. It is about self-belief, although you can never get overconfident. You should never get overconfident. When even experienced pilots, that's when they've crashed the plane. When they get overconfident, think they can handle anything. It's always that. When you fly, you're always taught, basically, when you're flying, look out for somewhere you can land in case your engine fails, because there's always that possibility for whatever reason. So you always fly at a safe height above ground. So you always make sure there's something. So if there's a lot of trees around, what we call tiger country, you'll make sure that you're high enough above it, so that then you can see somewhere in the distance that might just be a paddock or whatever that you can land. It doesn't matter if the plane gets wrecked as long as you walk away. Although the flying school will probably say they would like the plane to be in reasonable condition as well. Basically, as long as anything you can walk away from is a safe landing. It's a good landing. So the idea that you always got to be expecting that you could, but some people, they just don't think about it. They think they can challenge it. They think they can take on nature and survive it. And it's not the case. You've always got to be, you can, it's good to be confident, but you can never be overconfident. So you've got to believe in yourself. The self-belief, but you can never get overconfident about it, because that'll be the possible undoing of you.
Yeah. And I think I see that in life too, in terms of understanding yourself. If you're too overconfident, there's ramifications from that. And then you have the other side of the coin, which is I'm too tentative to even go out there.
Yeah.
How these days, how do you get people out of the shadows, so to speak, or is that not your thing?
What do you mean getting people out of the shadows? What would you?
Well, what if people, I know you're a great community woman. You're very involved with your local community. There must be people that come in there a little bit tentative, never been involved before. They've just got one foot in. How do you bring them out so that, because I know you do, because I've heard about your work.
For that, you just kind of ease them in gently, I guess. You don't push people. You never want to push people to do something that maybe they're tentative or a bit scared to do. You just gradually ease them into it. So, yeah, it depends on the person, but it's a case of, just easing them gently, maybe suggest they might like to get involved in something or other. Once you join this subcommittee we've got going, particularly if you find something that you find out what people are actually interested in, what their interests are. There's no point getting someone to do something that they have no understanding or no interest in whatsoever. But find something that they are interested in, and then just gently suggest, what about you join this, these two people here, they're going to do such and such. Oh, okay. And then before you know it, they can be off and running. Sometimes it takes them a little bit to get going. Like we've got one guy I know who's very, very quiet guy. But I know he's got a special interest in environment. That's his real interest, is environment. So there's an environmental committee. So and I've said to the guy, the director of it, I said, we should ask him along. I sort of think so. I said, he's really interested in environment. And so he's joined it. So and that gets him involved in something else.
Let me ask you, Paulette, what's the value in voluntary organisations? Because I think you've got heaps of knowledge about this. Do you think that there's a really big difference between volunteers and paid people? And this is a tricky question maybe, how does personal development help bring those two groups together to work together?
As far as in paid and voluntary work you're talking about? Okay. Yeah, well, voluntary work is obviously it's about giving, it's service. It's giving, it's service to others. And it's a very giving area. And it is very, very satisfying. Obviously, it's very satisfying personally as well. And I can remember years ago I was doing volunteering adult literacy and numeracy tutoring out of TAFE in Brisbane. I just did one-on-one. And I used to sort of think that I was feeling a bit selfish, because I used to feel that I got so much satisfaction out of doing it myself. But then I realised I was helping the people both people I helped, actually. It was more about, it wasn't so much about teaching them to do better maths or to read better or to be more literate. It's actually giving them self-confidence and self-esteem, then to move on. And that's when you knew you'd done your job. When they were, I'm going to do such and such. I'm going to start doing a boat building course. I'm going back into the Army Reserves and that kind of stuff. So that's when I say, well, you don't need me any longer then. So, and I think that is such a satisfying thing. And I've been volunteered on the blues music scene as well here in Southeast Queensland, supporting live musicians, live music gigs and that kind of thing too. And just because those guys, they usually don't have much of an idea about how to promote themselves. So some do, but not many. So helping them and supporting their stuff is good. And as far as, I don't know that, I think you could combine, I think sometimes what people get paid for Well, if people get paid for something that if they consider it just a job, then you're never going to get them to anything else. If they enjoy what they're doing, it makes a big difference. And then you might be able to get them to do some voluntary work on the side of that. And you do hear of organisations where they encourage their employees to volunteer and that kind of stuff. And I guess it's their heart's in the right place and they want to do it. If it's something they enjoy doing, passionate about. I know a couple of guys I know from the recruitment days, and they do have their own businesses, but they've actually got involved with the Sleep Rough, the Sleep Rough thing that's in Brisbane. And so they slept rough for a night or two or something like that with the others. And they just do that because they want to give back as well.
So how important do you think service is? Because I hear people talking about, I do service, I give service. Do you think that it's a well understood concept, being of service, giving service? What do you think about
I don't know that it is such a people think. I think a lot of the organisations that the charitable organisations that give service like Rotary, Lions, Apex, all that. Well, Apex not so much because Apex is targeted at more younger ones. But I think of Rotary and Lions as older people think. That's because a lot of people are old. There are younger ones in it as well. Probably not the majority of people are older, but you've got to remember when those people got in it, they're probably only in their 20s or 30s or 40s. So they were young at one point and just stayed around. And unfortunately, volunteering organisations, they're really struggling to get the numbers. I don't know what the reason for that is, but I do see, we've got, as part of Rotary, we have Interact and Rotaract and that kind of stuff as well. And in Maleny here, we've got the Interact kids up at the Maleny State High School. And they're a great bunch, and they give service. They're a service to people and all that kind of stuff. They're raising money and they give to different charities they want to give to. So they pretty much the kids in it. Obviously there's someone that sort of organises them, but pretty much the kids dictate what they want to do and what they want to give to and all that kind of stuff. I think it's fantastic at that age for them to be able to do that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it is so wonderful. So it's the case of, I guess when people want to be a service, that they think that they're expecting kind of some payment or reward for it. That's when it's wrong.
Yes.
You should never expect you should never do it expecting something in return.
No, and you think that's the ultimate type of service?
Yeah, you don't expect it. You do it because you want to do it. You want to help people, or help people, help animals, help the environment, whatever it is. You want to do it for yourself, and you don't expect to get anything out of it. You don't expect to gain anything from it.
No, I think that's key. What you're saying is giving without attachment, really, and being there to serve someone. I think you've hit the nail on the head. So what would you say if anyone's listening today in our Personal Development Hub and they're wondering where on earth to start their journey in personal development? You're a wise woman. You've been around the traps. What kind of advice would you give to them?
So just find something find a book, or probably a book is the best way to go, or find a podcast, something that resonates with them. Everyone's different, what they enjoy. I've got my favourites, other people have their favourites, but to find a book, or these days a podcast. People often don't want to sit down and read a book. I think we've got Audible books, and you don't have to sit down and read a paperback book anymore. But but a lot of people love podcasts. Just find something that they resonate with, or someone that resonates with them. Like I read a book recently which is called Green Light, which was by the actor Matthew McConaughey, who and I saw it advertised, and I love Matthew McConaughey as an actor. He's such a great actor, and I thought Audible, if him talking, it'd be fantastic to hear him talking as well. But it is such about Green Light is about his journey and through life, and it's so about personal development. And he seems to have gone on now to partner with other people to provide webinars and all that kind of stuff in personal development as well.
Wow.
So it's often
That's
from
fantastic.
so it's often from left field. It's not like, you know, the people that you kind of think of, you know, the Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn, Bob Proctor, all those kind of guys, which are in Napoleon Hill, all well known. But often there's a lot of new people out there doing it as well. And it might be somebody that you follow through music or through theatre or acting. And that
Yeah,
might,
good point. Yeah, that's a good point. I think that I was thinking about this whole thing the other day, because here, for those of you who might be football fans, we're involved in the women's world football competition between here and New Zealand. And what I've been watching, I don't know if this is of interest to you, Paulette, but what I've been watching, how deeply it's impacted the community. The passion, the enthusiasm, some of the photos I've seen, and the ages are from very small to past my age, absolute joy and pleasure and excitement. Have you been seeing all this?
Yeah, I don't follow. I'm not much into sports other than Formula One Grand Prix racing, but obviously you can't avoid it, and the Matildas and all that. And yeah, it is fabulous to see and particularly if it's women's football too. It's not like it normally male everything dominates. But this is the women's football, and it's got far more energy and far more following than the men's have.
Absolutely, and I'm looking how easy it is to influence people to feel good, to tap into their joy, to tap into their excitement. And I think it was earlier this morning, I don't know how I got to watch it. It must have maybe it was on Facebook, but it came across this massive group of people. The demographic was huge, and they all jumped up at the same time. And it was just a gorgeous thing. It was almost palpable. It's like, oh, I want to grab that energy.
Yeah.
And I love that people can be influenced to feel better. Yeah.
And to be influenced in such a good way. Such a positive
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. I forgot you're a bit of a petrol head, aren't you? Is that a fair comment? Yeah, you are.
Petrol head.
This is completely nothing to do with personal development, but what's the most favourite car you've ever had a ride in or driven?
Well, when I had my own car, I had that was my favourite car because it handled best on the road was a Saab. I had that years ago. It stuck to the road like glue. You couldn't get the thing off. And so I used to corner extremely fast, and so I used to wear the tyres. Used to wear the corners of the tyres. To the house. And it's the only time my dad's ever told me, "Can you slow down, Paulette?" We were going up on this winding dirt road up on sort of back of Tamborine Mountains up to O'Reilly's, and it was kind of very narrow as well. And I was the Saab was just ripping, and I was just flying up it. And Dad said to me, and it's the only time he ever spoke to me like this, "Can you just maybe slow down a bit?"
What's wrong, Daddy? You're losing you.
But I did have, I guess, as far as a famous car goes, I had a driver for Ferrari when I was in Abu Dhabi back in almost 6 years ago. I went to Ferrari World one day. Actually have a Ferrari World next to the track there at the Yas Marina. And I hired out a Ferrari and got to drive it for about an hour, something like that. It was pretty cool.
Is that about temperament, being able to drive fast and in control?
Well, once again, it's about confidence. I've had a couple of people with me. I remember one of my mates once, he said, "You drive fast, but I've never scared with you because I know you know what you're doing. You concentrate." And my confidence obviously was just coming out so much that he knew I was such a confident driver. And he said, I've never worry about driving when I'm driving with you, even though you drive quickly, because I handle situations, I react to situations quickly, response. And he was never any fear with me whatsoever. So
that says something. That's fantastic. Wow, what a range of topics we've covered today.
We have, rather.
It's just lovely and refreshing, and it's good to have you here. what sort of pearls of wisdom would you offer as we finish off today?
I think just, I mean, the biggest thing I think is to believe in yourself. And we also can, of course, be our own worst enemy as well, as far as sabotaging ourselves too. So don't worry about some people having, trying to steer you off course. You can do that perfectly well by yourself.
Yes,
But yes,
sure.
self-belief, and just for me, it's always live for life. That was always been my motto. I loved a song that was called "Live for Life" back early 70s, and I love the words to it. It's live for life, and for me, it's always have a go. You want to do something, just have a go at it.
And you've been one of those people, haven't you? You've had a go lots of times, and it's generally paid good dividends to you.
Things have worked. A couple of things haven't worked, but you've got to try. If you don't try, you're never going to know. And you don't want to be seen like people have these bucket lists, and I'm so not a bucket list person. I want to do something, I just go and do it. So I don't actually have a bucket list. I could die tomorrow and I'd be happy because I've pretty much whatever I want to do, I've just done it.
That's a beautiful thing. Act in the moment.
Yeah.
Take it, run with it. That's a beautiful note to end. Paulette, thank you so much for being here today. It's a real treat.
It's been a delight for me too to spend the time with you. Loved it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So if you want to give some comments about this conversation with Paulette, please do, and she will interact with you as well. And this has all happened on the Personal Development Hub. This is Mary Scott. Paulette, thank you so much. And I know we'll talk again. You have a lovely rest of your day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
This week's episode has come to an end. But the fun doesn't have to stop here. If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback, head over right now to Twitter and Facebook and like, share, and get involved. Join us next time.